Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining today's event. I'm Hannah Jennings, the community organizer at Tech in Motion, and I'm so excited to welcome you all to today's webinar. To keep today's session interactive, we encourage you to engage throughout the event in the chat, so share any questions, key takeaways, or insights as they come up. You're also welcome to connect with our fellow attendees here today by sharing your LinkedIn profile, which I see some of you already doing, or recommending any helpful resources to our community. For those of you who have attended a Tech in Motion event before, you know we've been bringing together the tech community since 2011 when Motion Recruitment launched this series. It's really always been about learning from industry leaders, building real connections, and staying ahead of what's next in technology. Today, as part of Kelly's technology division, Motion supports organizations and technologists as they tackle complex technology challenges, whether the need is building specialized teams, modernizing systems, scaling infrastructure, or advancing cloud, data, and AI initiatives. The focus is always on helping customers move faster with confidence. What that means is simple. If you're hiring critical technical talent, transforming how work gets done, or figuring out how to deploy AI responsibly, these are challenges we solve every day alongside teams like yours. And today you'll have the opportunity to hear some of that perspective directly from our telecom and consulting leaders. Now let's dive into why everyone's here today. Today's workshop is focused on moving beyond AI pilots and showing you how to build, deploy, and scale AI agents in real workflows, not just theory. You'll see on your screen, we've structured today as 3 connected sessions, blending strategic context, applied enterprise use cases, and live demos. We hope you'll stay around until the end of the event, but if you have to hop off early, we'll make sure you get a recording after today's session. We'll first begin with Wade Erickson and Richard Tobin from Motion Consulting Group, who will open the session with a strategic high-level exploration of enterprise AI transformation and what this moment truly means from tech leaders. Then following that, we'll move to Amit Tink from Kelly Telecom, who will lead an interactive session on how to cut through AI hype to examine where real enterprise value is being created today. And then finally, we'll close with Dimitri Shapiro, CEO of MindStudio, and Dimitri will lead a live session exploring the future of programming using Remy by MindStudio. So with that, I'm excited to welcome Wade and Richard to kick off today's session.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. All right. So both Richard and I, we're going to open with a little bit of a conversation around how we have been helping companies with their AI transformation at the enterprise level, and how we've also helped individuals because we support a lot of staffing roles. And one thing I'm seeing out there is I saw a recent statistic that 8 out of 10 hiring managers and recruiters are looking for AI in the resumes as a requirement for them to be moving forward. 8 out of 10 is very high, but it makes a lot of sense because a lot of the projects that I'm coming across are all have AI influenced, or if not full transformation efforts. So the projects are coming this way, and so the staffing obviously has to follow right behind it. So you can imagine where the needs are for people that have these skills. Now, I also saw this statistic that America is in the lower quadrants of implementation, and I've seen it, even with Sam Altman and those, they've talked about 1% implementation, where leadership is excited about where things are going and think that the ROI is there. 1%, but yet we're getting 8 out of 10 recruiters and hiring managers expecting AI in resumes. So, and even thinking about a separate section in the resumes since we're early days. So the first thing I wanted to do is have a quick icebreaker. If you want to answer in the chat, go ahead and feel free. So think of the biggest shift and how then and now, when you first came across AI. Maybe it was when you were first experiencing ChatGPT. Maybe you went back 5 or 6 years with machine learning. So think about that, and then how it is now and the speed of things. Okay. And then also think about where AI has delivered value in the place you didn't expect. What surprised you about where it actually worked versus where you thought it would work? And this is obviously a very fast moving. Within 6 months, there's another major change in things, whether it's the models, the capabilities of the models, those kind of things. So that's one thing. As we're going through the presentation today, I want to think about your organization. If you're leaders in the organization, how are you bringing in AI into your organization to be maybe an AI first organization? And if you're an individual, how are you preparing yourself to future proof your career path so that should you be in a role looking for a promotion, is AI going to be something that you're expected to know? Or if you're out in the market, and have some time, are you getting certified? There are certifications in this area. And we'll be talking about MindStudio. I know MindStudio has 3 levels of certification. I was certified almost a year ago in MindStudio, and I think it's a great platform. And so, and all the other ones, the training organizations are bringing courseware in and certifications. So until then, think about how you're preparing. So, all right. So I'm going to move to the next slide. Richard, you got anything to say real quick?
Yeah, I'm looking at some of the comments. Thank you all for joining, by the way. This is great. We love talking about this. I think a lot of people are, saying they're drinking from a fire hose. This is changing, not every 6 months. It's every week, it seems. So it is challenging to keep up with it. Even the top brass, Andrew Karpathy, he talked about how he's not coded since December, and he's kind of shifted his value towards an observer as opposed to a developer. And I think a lot of people are asking those questions of like, where do they get started and so forth, and what sources do they go to find out what the latest things are. So I find that X has a lot of good community for X.com for the AI teams, and also Reddit, and also YouTube has a lot of great resources. So having a good curated list is good to stay up on top of everything.
Yeah, and I saw another great comment there about a portfolio. If you don't have a certification opportunity, start building a portfolio in your Git repository. Share that as a means of showing what you can do in this space. I know that's something where I collect a lot of my work. All right, well, let me get into some of the slides here. So as you think about AI transformation, this isn't the first time we've had to make a lot of change in an organization. If you go back, I remember early in my career when computers weren't on everybody's desktop. So the ability to type was not in a lot of senior folks, senior leadership's capabilities. Can you imagine that? And so, and then when the internet moved in, that was department wide. But then when we moved to the cloud, that was more of an IT initiative. Millions and millions of dollars still in effort. But sometimes it affects the whole company, and sometimes it affects just an IT group. Well, in this AI era that we're in, it is affecting everybody. Agents can be built by people within departments, HR, recruiting, sales, not just IT. So think about your environment and as we go through this, and what processes you do that are often very repeatable and fairly standard, and where AI could maybe be slid into that process. So, but when we're talking to an enterprise organization, it's really about bringing in change at the from the top level. And of course, phase 0, we're always looking at strategy and alignment against business value. So what we want to do is we want to start with a strategy, look at where we can have the greatest value of AI being applied. And then you want to have executive sponsorship behind it, not just tools. Tools come a little later. First, you just need to see, where it is that you're going to be able to take advantage of AI at a high level, and then start to work into very specific processes. We're going to have some slides later that dig a little deeper into each of those steps on how you'd implement that. But again, it is a multi-phased approach. learn a lot in the beginning, prioritize so you can do some lower risk, high value pilots and learn. And as you learn more along the process and can get some good wins and get some stabilization, you can scale and evolve in phase 4. Richard, any thoughts on how we've been working with enterprises in their transformation?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing is not really start with AI, but start with where you are today. Start with your process. Look at where the data starts. Look at where you manage it, and look at where it rests. And that whole flow is where we can put the agentic process in to help you with that. So it could be taking out a whiteboard and just saying this is where we start, this is where we go next, and here's some of our bottlenecks. It's a great place to start, is to understand exactly where you are in the process, and not necessarily what an SOP might say, but actually what you're actually doing in the real world.
Yeah, and I think key to that is really looking at what are the measurable outcomes, which means metrics. And so as an example, I have some here with, if you're looking at more cost and efficiency outcomes, maybe it's cycle times or hours saved. I know when we were implementing RPA years ago, that's what it was all about. We had the bots running instead of humans, very structured data in the use of RPA, but that's been around 15 years. So this isn't the first time we've automated processes. But what really AI has done for us is that we're able to automate a lot of the unstructured stuff, which RPA was not good at. And so others might be revenue growth. Maybe we're in a sales cycle and converting prospects and getting the pipeline moving faster, or upselling. So these are various things that we can look at. And again, the beauty of AI is, guess what? You can use AI to identify measures and KPIs. If you can't think of any in your group, AI provides a wonderful opportunity for that. Okay. Mm-hmm. So also what we want to do is we want to organizing for agentic features. So how do we align around our agents, right? Again, agents have fit within a value stream. Stream example here, which is a sales process. Oftentimes, a lot of folks know, you're identifying leads and you're qualifying leads. And then once the lead has, you have a project that you can align with, then maybe you build some proposals, go back and forth and iterate on those until you finally get alignment and you can close them. And so here's an example of where you have a first agent that really helps around lead identification and qualification. Maybe there's surveys that go out that you can ask questions that help qualify the lead a little more as you're getting into the discovery of actual projects. And then, of course, proposals. I use this all the time. Proposals that used to take me a week to handwrite, I can do in hours now based on transcripts and other feedback that we got from the client. Those proposals, I can build them very quickly, and they're very accurate based on information that actually was talked about that I may not have even been able to take notes. So I'm using transcripts and other kinds of things to help push proposal development in a very efficient way. So this is, and you're going to come across this in every department. You'll have value streams that need to be processed, flowed, and if you don't have your processes documented, guess what? AI can help with that too, where you can almost speak to an AI agent and it will help build the process alongside of you, and you can validate it. Richard, any thoughts here in this area?
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at it like when you bring in an employee, you have a manager, you have a job description, you have guardrails on what your position is and what you're doing. I think you look at agents the same way. A lot of people are going to be shifting their value from actually doing the work to observing the work and becoming, the experts that they are, right? So I think a lot of experienced people, it's not replacing them. It's actually them shifting their value to reviewing what AI is producing to be the validator, the human in the loop.
Excellent, excellent. So also what I'd like to do, I know we're running a little bit on close to time here. There's various areas that that are AI ready for the enterprise. A lot of it you're going to be looking at a maturity growth curve on how quickly you are taking on these technologies, building them into the enterprise, stabilizing on them. And so, whether it building an innovation center at the top to build strategies and standards, to building a learning hub where you then sharing agents. A lot of these tools, you can share agents across departments and across the organization that can be modified and reapplied. And then, of course, you're modernizing all your technology. And then, of course, training and readiness is critical to this whole process. Any change management and transformation really leads with a good training program. And then as we're rolling this out, there's going to be different waves. This lighthouse domain concept might be new to folks, but think of a lighthouse and what a lighthouse provides. People that are, seafaring and they basically can direct their boat towards the lighthouse, or if there's rocky, water. So that's where this lighthouse metaphor comes in. But you want to grab 2 to 3 really high value product domains that you're going to approach, and maybe even the lower risk. So maybe not heavily regulatory, and get these fast wins so you can show these high impact use cases within a couple of value streams. And each one of those is going to have an intake and process, discovery, design, build and pilot, as well as you're going to evaluate and scale. So, and as you move from those early pilot areas, then you're going to go into other areas that are adjacent and have familiarity with what you did in the earlier ones. And as these grow and mature, you can move more into the more complex regulated ones. Any thoughts, Richard, in this area?
Crawl, walk, run. Start with the easy wins, like you said. Everybody can visually see, they can experience it, and then but definitely don't start with the most regulated and hardest and most political department. Start with some easy wins, and you can go from there.
All right, and this last concept area is what I wanted to share. So a lot of times what we're seeing is that early on, years ago, like two years ago, when this was first being presented for adoption, the Center of Excellence concept was being leveraged. And we've seen this before with quality assurance and agile and other areas where we built a Center of Excellence. Something else that might not be quite as well known out there is the concept of a virtual AI delivery center. A lot of companies are looking to the IT group to really push this, since they feel AI is a technical challenge, and so IT should be driving this. But as you'll see, especially during our demonstration, anybody can build agents. Anybody can build code-driven development. I mean, AI-driven code development to build things for their departments. It is a whole new paradigm, and so depending upon where your organization is looking for guidance and implementation, it may come from an IT group. It might come from the top down. And so this concept of virtual AI delivery centers versus COEs, you may come across both. And so they have some similarities, but they also have differences as well. And some of those would be the IT side is really about implementation, boots on the grounds, getting things done. And then, of course, the Center of Excellence is more around strategy and building governance and standards and centralizing leadership. So, and the one thing you want to be careful, and why we call it a virtual AI delivery center, is that if you build a physical committed AI delivery center, it could very easily become a bottleneck. And that's the last thing right there. Avoid bottlenecks and spread AI practices across all of IT and all of the Scrum teams instead of isolating them. So early on, you may build a virtual team that is a grouping, a sampling of the SMEs from different Scrum teams into that virtual team. And then they, of course, cross-pollinate back into their organizations as they learn and implement. Anything you'd like to provide here?
Yeah, I think if you try to replace yourself, you're going to understand exactly what it takes for the agentic process to happen, but you're going to be the expert to review what artificial intelligence is producing. So you're going to be in that part of the loop. So start with your lowest hanging fruit, your processes that you have now. Look at where they're starting and look at where they end, and look at how we can automate these processes for you.
All right, well, that's my last slide. I'd love to bring in Amit here and let him kind of show you what we're doing in our telecom group and get a little, some of the real world work that we're doing over in that space. Amit, take it from here.
Thank you so much, Wade and Richard. Those were some excellent points that they made. I'll quickly start with a little bit of background of myself. My name is Amit Tank, and I've had the fortune to bring some pretty popular products into the market. So I've had the opportunity to wear different hats. Sometimes as a product architect, sometimes as the engineering leader, on the pre-sales side, on the sales side, the solutions architecture side, but mostly all working with some large enterprises until now. One thing that was very well articulated earlier was crawl, walk, run, and the lighthouse approach. The thing about AI, as many of the audience today, I'm looking at the poll today, it's a cross section of like what you can do. It's very easy in the industry to be enamored by the allure of all the bells and whistles of AI. And as everybody knows, every week there is a new drop of new model. Do you really go after the bleeding edge technology, because that's what you've seen being happen across the industry previously, or approach it a little bit different? Now, I was in the industry back when cloud was not a thing. Like AWS had never declared their financial result, so it was mostly cloud was seen as mostly a novelty thing, and pretty much most of the enterprises back then had a on-premise data center, or on-premise basically shared compute facility. When cloud came along, a lot of people basically were skeptic, and they treated it as an IT tool or an IT avenue. Very similarly, right now, AI, rather than chasing AI for the technology of it, what we are seeing in enterprise side is you have to go after the outcomes. And these are some of the outcomes that clearly seem to be falling in the line of what low-hanging fruit that we heard Richard and Wade talk about earlier. So things like cost savings, things like innovation and growth, things like data-driven insights. Like every single company right now is growing revenue by way of doing developer velocity. So can you release your software or your product or your services in 2 months instead of 8 months? Well, that's an excellent use of leveraging AI. Now, let's talk about a little bit of the scenario of where the hype comes in and where the real insights are really built upon. Like if you want to be, and I'm seeing that there are so many of like our community members that are in different positions in their organization. If you want to successfully transform your organization, you have to understand what's limitations of AI, where does the AI stop, and where does the human factor come in to play a bigger role. So a lot of time, executives are going to probably have a misconception that the chatbots can solve everything, right? Not at all true. Same thing with LLM. You see every single day a new state of the art or a new premium model drops, and dropping in the best LLM does not solve your company's problem, and the work does not stop there. Same thing is AI is not a magic wand where you deploy it once and you basically just get all the benefits of it. And same thing with data. You do not get actionable insights from the data automatically. Instead, what really the enterprise is going after are areas, and people who are successful in enterprise. If you want to personally grow in your career with AI, or you want to successfully transform your company, or you just want to play the role of evangelist, introducing new technology to your organization, you have to think about how do you clean, organize, and form your ETL pipeline, which is the data pipeline. How do you take AI from that pedestal that the media has put on, bring it right into your core heart of the workflow? Like if your company is doing supply chain, are there 5 processes that you can identify which can be done better with AI? Are there guardrails and regulatory compliance you need to worry about? I think focusing your efforts around being able to do iteratively really helps you succeed. Same thing, driving adoption and organizational culture is also extremely important. Now, you've heard a lot about agentic AI, right? How do you translate all your AI knowledge into real actionable things? Like, where do you start? So I'm going to quickly give you like a side-by-side overview. This was something that I work on a daily basis, working with my customers and a large group of customers that are advanced digital services team, like one of my colleague, Barry, and myself. Like we talk to a lot of customers, and we really understand that there are nuances of personal agents, but then the way that they are used in enterprise environment, it differs in a significant way. So for example, for enterprises, long-term memory and shared memory is an important thing. For users, it's just a context. You start a new thread and you're done. Something like, for example, scheduling a bunch of automation tasks, it's a novelty thing. People talk a lot about agents that can do that, but in enterprise, orchestration is a major factor. Now, let's talk about things like ownership. So data, you own your data when you're working with agents, but in enterprise, audit, governance, compliance becomes a centerpiece. And as I mentioned earlier, many of these industries are in either oil and gas sector, telco sector. They have serious regulatory needs. And so let's jump into the workshop part. And I want to talk a little bit about like building agents yourself. If you want to target an enterprise, you have to be extremely comfortable with understanding some basic concepts. And we are going to basically talk a little bit about the traditional computers versus an agentic architecture. Now, the myth is that, oh, the moment you bring in AI, there is something of a diminishing of the value of that human component, right? That's not really the case. There is a big hype going on around because of some of these big hyperscalers. The reason why they are seeing some reduction in headcount is more to do with like raising money to go after compute build out rather than agents replacing humans. So the way it works is you have CPUs in your traditional computer stack. Those are LLMs, memory, those are context windows, storage, which is long-term vector DB and long-term memory. And then your device drivers, they are your tool integration. So things like whether you're going to need a online search API, whether or not you're going to need like some kind of a image generation API. Those are all tools, and there are a number of different tools that are evolving. The critical part is operating system. And in case of agentic ecosystem, this component is what it's called agent harness. Many of you have probably heard about Cloud Code, other tools like Cursor, etc. Those are all agentic harness. Can you build it yourself? Absolutely, yes. And so typically you're going to see a little bit of a flow here, and I'm going to share my screen so you can actually take a look at how that looks like. There you go. All right. So hopefully people are able to see the screen here. What I have here is we're going to do crawl, walk, run. So we're going to see like 3 different ways, maybe 3 to 4, depending upon time, of how do you approach some of those concepts that we just talked about. One of the starting things where most practitioners, and I use the word practitioners in a more pragmatic way, that AI expertise in an organization when they're doing transformation does not simply stay limited in PowerPoints, and neither does it simply stay limited in code. It's truly a practice. It's an art of practicing. How do you take some of those concepts and bring to the table? So what you have here is essentially a simple hello world, if you may say so, like a lang graph. What this is nothing but a bunch of different steps being initialized. This is in Python, so we are essentially importing a lang graph component. And let's take a look at the chatbot. All what it is doing is it is selecting Gemini Flash as the model, and it's just simply entering new nodes which essentially are going to work as our way of a state machine. Or in a simple term, you could think of it as it's point A, point B, point C. What you've essentially created is a loop. Now let's go ahead and actually run this. Okay, so we have essentially a very, very simple form of ChatGPT here. What it does is it uses the LangGraph and LangChain, and it uses the Gemini model. So I'm going to basically say that, hey, I am in France. I would like to visit the capital city. Where should I go? Okay. So what we did here was we gave it a message, and I gave it a second message without telling it what I'm which place I am at. What it had to do, what the agentic workflow, that simple few lines of code, what that agentic workflow did was it understood and it remembered that I'm in France. And then now it is giving me context about Paris, like, because that's what we asked it for. Now, along those lines, if I had also asked that, by the way, I am looking to explore with my family, and I want to make sure that the weather is good enough for me, I don't need to basically plan for weather. What it will do is you'll have the opportunity to also make it invoke some tools like weather lookup, tools like currency translation. Hey, how many dollars should I expect to cost if I'm, say, going for a nice boat ride or something like that? And that loop is what the basic design of AI is. Whether you go to OpenAI, whether you go to Anthropic, whether you go to any other Google Gemini providers or Amazon or Azure, this loop, agentic loop, is what is at the heart of what different frameworks do. Now, the other quick thing I wanted to quickly show here was the agentic flow. So this is how that agentic flow works. As you can probably see on the screen here, there are autonomous agents and there are prescriptive agents. What they do is, the more autonomous they are, the more self-reliant they're going to behave like. So what you have to typically specify to that agent is, hey, I'd like to be making a presentation. I'm planning on making a presentation to, say, my board of directors or my colleagues on the impact of AI on financial analysis, stock analysis. And it will figure out what you need to do, what information you need, what kind of a presentation you need, etc. However, in the enterprise, they have past 50, 60, 80 years of institutional knowledge. Like Geico has 50 different processes to determine what is the adjuster process is going to look like after an insurance incident event, right? A claim or any kind of incident event. That's where the prescriptive agents come in, that you can actually steer those agents to a great extent by fusing in a lot of institutional knowledge. Now, those code agents are great, but like a lot of people in the survey mentioned that you guys have mostly been at the high level and never had a chance to dabble in the hands-on stuff. What if you want to essentially build agents, but you have not spent a lot of time coding, or you don't come from a coding background, you are a marketing expert, or you are a video content creator, or you are essentially a leader, org leader? Well, the great thing about this is the AI ecosystem is that you actually don't have to be expert in coding at all. We are going to look at some platforms. So the platform, just like MindStudio, there is another platform called DeFi. This is an open source platform. Anybody can essentially go and start building new agents visually without ever having to basically look at a code at all, any parts of code. So things like marketing, things like research, things like utility, knowledge retrieval, like you have a number of different options, and we're going to take a look at this one agent, very, very simple agent. I'm going to basically provide a bunch of basically topics to this, and it's going to go and do a research. And let's use this agent. I did not have to add any code to it. This took less than like probably 5 minutes of time to just put together. It's all drag and drop. Hey, give me some latest update on GameStop company and any news around it. Okay, now what happened was it basically essentially went to your desired model. It's going to go and get all the necessary results, that information that I'm going to care about, and then it's actually going to pass that results to my desired LLM. So for example, if I was a busy executive and I only wanted a brief, concise summary, this is what it gave me. Now you can train this, or you can essentially craft this to make it do any number of things that you prefer. So for example, if you are a stock research analyst, you can essentially tell this agent that, hey, I would like a McKinsey style report, but everything about the cash flow health and the bottom line and the top line of this organization. And I also want to research competitive pressures of what this company is heading into next quarter. And it's going to take all the raw data that it found from online, and it's going to exactly craft it the way you want, in your tone, your language, without you ever having to write the code at all. And so, like, as you can see, like the GameStop company, they are proposing a acquisition play for eBay, and that's what it quickly was able to pull it. So there are a number of different ways you can explore building agents without ever having to write code. And I think that I like the thought that Hannah had shared in our session, as well as some of the sessions that Hannah and Kara have shared in previous workshops with Tech in Motion, that don't be afraid of AI. If you want to grow in your career, you can actually start with really, really small things. As you understand some of these concepts a little bit better, you'll actually see that while this slide may look a little bit overwhelming, when you try it with some of these visual builders, it will start making sense, and you'll actually start thinking from a domain expert point of view. AI is not going to make you an overnight expert in the domain that you are not familiar with. So I could know all the AI in the world, but it's not going to make me expert at content or community curation like Hannah is, or like Mr. Beast is on YouTube content creation, right? But if Hannah, who's already excellent in building a community, creating content, bringing new stories to you, if she were to use AI, it can enhance the effectiveness by 10x. So that's where I think the domain expertise comes into picture. Now let's look at some other potential workflows as well. I am going to talk about a pattern called RAG. A lot of people know what RAG is. So this is another open source tool called Langflow. What this does is that it allows you to essentially go and build any number of agents here. So research, methodology, RAG. We're going to talk about building a RAG agent here, actually. So this is what we're going to talk about. Let's say I have a magazine. So this is like a AI magazine, and it's like a magazine like Forbes, and it's talking about a bunch of personalities in AI industry, like different executives in AI industry that are currently making impact here. So let's take a look at this workflow diagram. There you go. Super easy to build. I didn't have to do a whole lot. I gave it this AI magazine as my content. You can give 50, 100 of your textbooks, your PDF reports from your company's knowledge base, or let's say if you are essentially building some tool for your internal enterprise users, this could be a benefits guide, this could be any content that you care about, right? Like it could be a large library of like thousands of PDFs or slide decks, etc. Let's see what it can do. So essentially, I am going to copy paste this so I don't have to try this all the way there. Now, let's say we saw that this is a magazine that is talking about AI. So is there a mention of NVIDIA CEO in this? And if so, what page in the PDF is it at? Okay. You could have thousands of documents. And let's say you are on timeline to come up with a report for your management or your leadership team on what was the impact of all the improvements you did, whether for your developers, whether for your product team, research marketing team, inbound marketing, outbound marketing, etc., in last 1 quarter worth of all the new initiatives that you put together, right? Well, in a RAG and a knowledge-based agent like this can essentially quickly scan through a large amount of information and give you exactly the information that you want. And it's called Retrieval Augmented Generated Agent, RAG. And essentially what that does is that instead of like going out in the internet and giving you all the random information that you may or may not need, what this does is that it essentially just focuses more on what you need to basically retrieve the information from and get that data right in front of you. So while this is working on, I want to quickly show this chart here, which is basically that we heard Richard and Wade talk about this part, which is how do you take enterprise knowledge and apply it or leverage it exactly where you need? Well, that's where some of these agentic patterns can come into the play. And there are like 15, 20, or maybe 30 different patterns right now that are pretty popular. RAG is like a higher, bigger umbrella. There can be like 4 to 5 different RAGs, depending upon whether you're using VectorDB, whether you're using GraphDB, whether you're using nearest search neighbors, and a bunch of different algorithms. But essentially, from a business point of view, what that does is that it actually has a lot of knowledge that it can go and basically create that workflow around. You can go and create that workflow around that knowledge. So with that, I quickly also want to talk about a couple of other, I think this workflow is still running. There you go. I think basically, probably, there you go. Yeah. I think I'll probably need to double check. But this workflow, what it can do is it can take a large amount of documents and quickly get you the information that you want, and so that you could build agentic workflows around it. Similarly, this is another platform, Gumloop, where you can take it to the next level and you can essentially just talk to it. So we went from crawl, walk, run. We went from a more Python prescriptive approach to slightly more drag and drop design-based approach with DeFi. And now, essentially, we are, quote unquote, we are essentially going into the vibe creating mode. And essentially here, you can pretty much give it the intent that you're looking for, that, hey, I would like to create a agentic workflow to analyze a YouTube video from YouTube video URL. Give me view stats and other important info. User will provide a URL. That's it. I did not basically expect it to give me any other detail other than this, and it will start building the whole agent right in front of you. It'll also ask a bunch of different things, and you'll also have the ability to influence what it can and cannot do, like what tools it can and cannot use. And it'll ask you for integration. So for example, if you have a tool that expects you to interact with YouTube comments, it may ask you for access to YouTube, but you essentially can sit back and watch it build that. And so with that, I want to quickly go back to some of the slides that we were talking about. I am going to just stop sharing. We were talking about, which is where do you bring this into your uh, enterprise? And for that, let me bring Wade and the rest of the team members back into the discussion. Wade and Richard, take it away from here, please.
Yeah, real quick. We want to keep things moving along, so we'll run through these pretty quick. So, as we spoke about, you're always going to want to grab the measured outcomes, and so these are real world case studies. This one's more of a finance approach, where we took a value stream of order to cash, which is a finance value stream, and we applied some AI to that, and so some of the before and after. So it's very manual. Frequent billing errors, those kind of things. And then we used AI to help with validation and real-time credit risks and those kind of things. And so you can see some of the measured outcomes of the improvements: 30 to 50% on invoice dispute volume reduced, order rework reduced, billing accuracy improved, those kind of things. So, here on, we have a couple of different areas that we have as examples. This is real world. We are implementing AI in organizations, improving value streams. And these are, if you're not measuring the outcomes, you're not going to be able to articulate the value that you're seeing. Modernizing cybersecurity, huge area, especially with the kinds of things that Mythos found. If you know about that model that came out a little while ago, 1,000 day zero exploits that it found. So, but AI is very, very heavily being applied to cybersecurity. And so very similar measured outcomes, false positive alerts, those kind of things. And then the last one, as an example, was really around software development. This is a huge area we're being asked to help with, is applying AI to software development. You would think with all the coding tools that are coming out, especially once you see what Dimitri has here with Remy, it is, the landscape of developing software is changing so fast. And so it isn't just about building code. There's a whole lot of processes and value streams around generating software that AI is being applied beyond just building the syntactic code that's the binary code. So, and the last, we do have an action framework. I'll pop it up there real quick. So if people want to watch the recording, they can kind of see some of the frameworks of applying and getting started. So real quick, before we jump over to Dimitri, Richard, Amit, do you have any final things to say? And we got a great tool, all that stuff you saw Amit do that might have seemed a little complex with code, and man, oh man, are you in for a treat here with what Remy's got for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
But all of it's important. All of it, depending upon what you need. Sometimes you need those surgical approaches that Amit shared to do agents. Other times you can do very broad techniques, which you're going to see with Remy, that build very, very powerful applications. But I don't want to steal Dimitri's thunder. So go ahead, you guys, before we wrap.
Yeah, one quick note that I wanted to quickly add is that don't be shy for the audience here who are also looking to grow in their career, as well as like build this practice or build this advanced technology in your organization. Don't be shy to reach out and partner with some of the experts who have done this, have been there working with large enterprises, because you don't have to be large enterprise to be working with people like myself, Wade, and Richard. You could very well be a medium or a large size company, and partnering with some of these experts will actually cut 12 months, 8 to 12 months from your lead time, and you will quickly be as close as possible to getting benefits of leveraging AI. So feel free to reach out through this platform and elsewhere on how you can learn from that partnership, knowledge partnership, advisory partnership, as well as actually getting some of these projects into POC.
All right, I think we're ready for you, Dimitri.
Awesome. Thank you. Excited to chat with all of you folks. I'm going to share my screen here in a moment, so hopefully you'll get to see very little of me and a bunch of things that I've got to show you. But yeah, I'm super excited to geek out with you guys here. Excuse me. Okay. Can you guys see my screen? I'm looking at like Wade. I assume so. Perfect. Okay. So these days I describe myself as an old nerd. I started writing code in 1984, years old in high school. I have a degree in electrical engineering. I've never done a day of it. I've always been into software. I'm currently running a venture-backed AI platform called MindStudio. Prior to this, I spent 4 years at Google on the product side. I was CTO at MySpace, if any of you are old enough to remember that. And then prior to that, I built 2 other venture-backed companies. One was a large competitor to YouTube called VO Network, raised $70 million for that. One was an enterprise cybersecurity company called Iconic Systems, raised $34 million for that. Here at MindStudio so far, we've raised $36 million. Again, it's a platform that's used by individuals and organizations to build and deploy AI agents. There's over 400,000 of these things that have been deployed in all kinds of organizations. His Majesty's Revenue and Customs, the British Internal Revenue Service, is a customer in New York Times. This company called Advanced Locals got over 600 MindStudio AI agents that are running, that are automating. They're a giant media company, so it's automating news production, news gathering, fact checking, business functions, things like that sort. And the reason I'm kind of telling you all of this stuff, I have a unique vantage point for, from here to be able to see into many different types of organizations and the kind of work they're doing. And so we've been doing this for almost 3 years and have seen this thing evolve. By the way, the entire company is just 10 people. I'm CEO. We have CTO, 1 product manager, 1 additional engineer. Our CTO is the primary engineer, and some folks. That's the entire company. Now, how can we do this with a company of this size? Well, we're augmented by AI agents. We eat our own dog food, and what a crazy world that we live in that we can do this. And so again, when I started geeking out on software in 1984, and like nobody cared about it. We were looked down upon, right? We were a bunch of nerds, and like nobody wanted to build a product, right? And then over the last, couple of decades here, well, everybody wanted to build a product. Why? Because products are valuable. Products allow you to start a company and become a multi-billionaire. Products allow you to build a company and be your own boss. So you don't have to like report to anyone. There's like a lot of people that really fantasize about that, or for countless other things they want to do. And so building products is now the hottest thing around. You guys know this. Okay. And of course, the problem here has been is like, okay, that's great. That it's cool to build products, but it's hard to do. I don't know how to write code. And even if I do know how to write code, still takes a tremendous amount of time, costs a lot of my, my personal mental effort and time to build these things. And then of course, if you're a company, or if you've got a startup idea and you want to you want to launch a company, well, you got to find a technical co-founder, or you have to find developers. And developers are scarce. Developers are the bottleneck because building software is hard. But as you've all been hearing here, and I'm sure you've seen out in the wild, boy, has the world changed. And now writing code, okay, that's part of the practice of building a product. Writing code is getting easier and easier. And we're really already at the place where everyone that wants to build a product can build a product. Okay. Again, we'll dive into what does it mean to build a product versus write some code. Okay. But here I'm just kind of calling it build a product. And again, for a lot of this, you don't ever need to see a single line of code, because these AI, coding agents, as they're called, you may have heard of these, like Cursor or Windsurf or Claude Code or OpenAI Codex or Gemini with anti-gravity or Lovable or Replit or Bolt. These are all these names. You may hear these like giant companies and giant products. They're all working on this problem of how do we make it dumb easy for anyone to be able to write some code, even if they don't need to write code. Okay. And some people are even asking, like you see online, people do we even need developers anymore? Like if your kid's going to go to college, should they study computer science? That used to be the job. Well, maybe it's not the job anymore, right? So it's a fair question. The short answer is yes, we still need developers, but people are asking this. And again, and there's like tons of choices. And so it's great that we can all now build things, but now we've got to figure out kind of the rest of these things. Like, for example, which of these platforms should I use? They can all build things. Which one? Which one should you use? I don't know. Depends on who you are, right? And so who are you? Okay. If you are sitting in an organization, you might be a software developer in an organization, and your job is to work on a code base, and maybe your your organization makes software. So you work at a SaaS company, let's say, or your company builds some kind of a software product, and you work on that product. Well, you might use platforms like these. Okay, these are professional coding agents meant for professional developers to use. Could you use these things if you're not a professional developer? Yes, you could. But these are not the best things to use if you're not a professional developer. Okay. But if you are, let's say, a business user in an organization, well, you're not writing code. That's not your primary job. But could you benefit from some new capabilities to be able to make your job that you do more autonomous? Could you have some custom business tools that you wish you had, and you've got this like giant SaaS stack that you've learned to use? The median mid-sized organization has around 130 SaaS platforms that are all integrated together and power the operations of a mid-sized organization, right? And so you already have plenty of business tools, but all those business tools are kind of like Frankenstein together. They weren't meant for your company. They were meant for all companies, because that's how these SaaS platforms build it. So these things are, valuable for as many companies as possible. Your company is just one of them. And you can take them and you can customize them. And sometimes you have to hire professional services in order to do that, right? And so your organization, your IT team has put all these things together and you use them. But meaning you, I'm looking at you, if you look at your own stack, that, man, that thing is a mess. Because again, it's all Frankenstein together. And it's not the way you would have built it. It's not the way you wish it worked. It's just the way it worked. That's the world we've been living in. But not anymore. Now, you, business user in any organization, can build your own custom business tools, either to augment your existing stack or even replace certain parts of the stack. If you think about it, most of those SaaS products you only use a few features from those products. They force them down your throat to be able to buy their SaaS platform, but you don't need that. You wish they didn't have all those features. They just get in the way. You just want a few features from this SaaS and a few from this and a few from that. Well, guess what? You can now build that specific application that just has those features. And it's built for you because you built it. And it's made to fit you like a glove. And when you have things that fit you like a glove like this, they are dramatically more productive for you to use. They can be much more automated. And so you don't have to move things, copy and paste things from this thing to that thing, and then transform it here and do that. Well, you can just have it do those things. And indeed, there are lots of business users that are now building their own tech stacks. And many of you may have heard this term called SaaSpocalypse. Okay, if you haven't, you should check it out. SaaSpocalypse is real. It is the practice of business users building their own tools and telling those SaaS vendors, we're not renewing. And that's impacting stock prices and all these other things. So this is a big, big thing, this idea that non-technical business users of any company can build their own products, and the products that they build for themselves are better because they're custom built, are better than the Frankenstein stack that has existed forever, right? Okay, so this is a really powerful place to take advantage of these new capabilities, right? First of all, software developers and companies have incredible output. One software developer can now, have a yield of 2, 3, 4, 10, 100. It's crazy. I'm not exaggerating of this. And so it's amazing what, remember, we have one CTO and one developer. That's entire company. We built this like ginormous platform and took it to market and do all that because of things like this. Okay, so that's enterprise. If you are an SMB, you're an owner operator, well, you struggle with this every day. You know that none of those solutions that you can license are exactly the things you want. Well, guess what? And they're expensive. Well, you don't have to. You've got small needs as an SMB owner. You only have a few things, and you can build a bunch of those things yourself. And so there's an option now for you to step. I'm going to take this weekend. Like, these are the scopes of time of what I'm talking about. These aren't years. These aren't even months. This is like you can build meaningful products in less than a day, sometimes in an hour or two, and certainly in a weekend. You can transform a stack as an SMB owner. It's nuts. You might be an agency that's paid to deliver products to customers. Again, your dynamics have now fundamentally changed. Your yield, just like it is here, is dramatically expanded. And so you can have more customers. You can develop and deliver much deeper solutions for customers you already have. And then, of course, we're all individuals. And I suspect that all of you, at one time or another, probably many times in your life, had that idea, right? You remember that idea you had and you told your friends about it? And you were certain at that time that that idea was a huge idea, right? And that, man, you really wanted to find some investor to give you money, and you wished you could code, and you maybe even went out looking for a technical co-founder and you failed. Guess what? Try to remember all those ideas or go brainstorming for new ideas, because wow, we are here. Whatever your idea is, if it has to do with software, whether you've written a line of code or not, you can now attempt to build it. And you can, depends on, how you build it and what it is and what platform you choose and effort you put in and all of that. That's why I use the word attempt. You can build it. Whether you'll complete building it or not, that depends. That's what we're about to get into. There's a big difference between, oh, look, I typed some keywords into Lovable, let's say, and 5 minutes later, it gave me this landing page. And that thing looks amazing. I'm ready to go. Look, the product is built. Let's start counting the money. And then you realize, actually, as you like click on some of the buttons, you're like, oh no, that's just like the homepage. It's the beginning of the homepage. Like, it's got the nav bar, but like there's like all these other things that need to be built. Oh, by the way, this is just like the marketing page didn't actually build me the product. I asked it to build me a new social media service. Twitter is now all Nazified. And maybe you don't want to hang out with those guys. Maybe you want your own Twitter. Well, you can ask Lovable to build it for you. Build you a wonderful homepage for it. But it's not going to build you Twitter, okay? But you can build Twitter. You can build that later today if you want. Please, somebody build Twitter. I miss it. I'm Dimitri on Twitter. I'm an old tweep. I miss those days. Okay, so it depends on who you are. You now have one opportunity to do amazing things, transformative things, massively valuable things. And you also have like countless choices of how you go about doing it, okay? And that's what we're going to talk a little bit about. So the first question we got to ask, excuse me, is what kind of what product are we building? Like, what do we mean by product, right? And these are some very sort of popular categories, let's say, of product that we see people building in the wild. One category is kind of workflow automation, right? Like, we all, as knowledge workers, show up in the morning, we have our cup of coffee, and we log into some system, and we get some data, and then we're like, oh, now we got to do some research in some other system, and then we got to take this data and kind of like synthesize it and transform it and put it into some other system. And then we collaborate with others to do that. I propose that is knowledge work, whether you're working in a law firm or any other type of a knowledge company. And with these modern tools now, you can automate a huge portion of this type of manual knowledge labor, right? Or again, another example is, I wish I had a button that did something over here. I've got this little bar here. It's got a bunch of little buttons. These are magic buttons. These buttons give me superpowers. These are AI agents that I can trigger from any website that can do analysis, that can do generation, that can do all kinds of crazy things that you could never do before. Now I've got them, and it's dumb easy to make these little buttons. You can make them in a matter of minutes, 15 minutes, you have a new superpower. Okay, and for doing these kinds of things, there's a bunch of platforms. N8N is a popular platform. MindStudio, my company, has something called MindStudio Workbench. It competes here as well, Zapier, etc. Okay, other things you might say, well, that's cool. I want to build like a product that I can launch. And some people say, well, yeah, I need like a website. I need to build a website. I need to build a landing page, and it needs to have some, interactivity. It needs to have like a form, contact us form, or like a calculator. So I'm going to build a macro calculator. If you're going to be bodybuilding, you can calculate your macro. Okay, cool. And so again, there's lots of choices of platforms you can use for these. These are kind of the most popular ones. And then there's stuff like, oh, I want to build an internal business tool. Okay. Or I want to like replace some of my SaaS that I have. Dimitri, you say I can replace it. I want to do that. Great. There are professional grade tools that allow you to build meaningful products that have a bunch of screens and complexity in them, not just landing pages and interactive forms, not simple web stuff, but applications. And of course, there are professional tools like Claude Code or Codex. And then there are other things like Replit is a popular company that allows you to do that. And then we, MindStudio, have a new product that's in alpha right now. It's called Remy. Remy 2 is one of these things. And then, of course, there is this, it's not for internal use, but I want to build, I've always dreamed of being an entrepreneur. I'm going to bring a product to market. And it's going to be a meaningful product. It's going to be a multi-tenant platform. It's going to be a platform for other people to be able to create accounts in it, right? And I'm going to power their businesses. I'm going to build a true SaaS. Well, you can do that. You can build those kinds of platforms now. Again, in a day, in a week, depends on how OCD you are and what you want to do. And again, you can use these types of tools in order to be able to build this. And so you may have seen a bunch of ads, or you may have, watched some YouTube tutorials. You may have seen people talking about it, and they say, listen, Dimitri is right. They might not have mentioned my name, but you get the point that it is this easy. Like, what does it take to build a product? Nothing. It doesn't take anything to build a product. You simply show up and look, you can ask Lovable to create a landing page, and you can just create. You see, in fact, you can click the little icon over here. You can just talk to it. You can say, build me a landing page about anything. I don't care, because I want to launch a company. I don't care what company. Build me a company and go. And it'll build you stuff, and you're going to say, oh, wow, this is amazing. But you haven't thought it through. It's not, it's amazing that you got an amazing landing page, but you didn't get a company. You didn't get a product. You got a landing page for the product. And that's a great start. And you couldn't have done it without this, but that's not it. That doesn't take you there. In fact, if any of you are fans of South Park, you might remember the underwear gnomes that were stealing underwear. Why? Because they had this, hypothesis that you collect underwear and then there's profit. But how do you make the profit from the underwear? Well, they didn't have the idea of how to do that. I propose we're in a similar moment right now with like, oh, anyone can build code and launch companies and whatever, and you just go to Lovable and type in what you want and go. That's not accurate, because building products is more than obviously typing a prompt and having a landing page. For example, it requires, planning, right? And breaking down of work and prioritizing tasks and sprints. And it requires actually developing these things and testing them and making sure that they work, right? Before you deploy them and start selling them to companies, and and they either break or they've got some crazy security vulnerabilities. And so there's a reason that Lovable has not replaced software developers working at Meta or all the SaaS companies, because this is not that. This is build a landing page. These professional tools allow developers to do the work that developers do. But building a product is more than developers, right? I was at Google for 4 years. I was a product manager. I was in charge of a bunch of products. What's a product manager? Why do you need a product manager? It seems like you just need a developer. Well, obviously that's not right. In order to build a product, there's many roles and many things involved in building a product. Developers play an important role, okay? But there are many other roles that are product and design and QA and DevOps and legal and like all the things to build the product. And by the way, these are the things that take up the vast majority of time and not development. Development has been a bottleneck because it's hard to find developers. Development wasn't the time sink. There were many more resources spent in companies on all the product and UX and research and all that other stuff, okay? And so if you want to build a product, that's cool, you can get some code. But that's just a part of what you really need, yeah? And you know, so what is the thing for this? What's the budget to build a product these days? Well, the budget you should expect is about $100 to $1,000, maybe a couple of $1,000. Okay, so again, is it free? No. Is it free? Yes, because compared to building a product, this is zero. Like, what does this even mean, right? So this is the crazy part, that for tiny budgets like this, you can have production grade, full products, including, again, multi-tenant platforms. And you can build them without writing any code, without a partner. One last thing I want to show you here. So I have a Substack, but I'm terrible of keeping it up to date. But in May 3rd of 2023, so 3 years ago, I wrote an article called The Human AI Interface. And what I argued here is that, and again, 3 years ago, before the knowledge of where we would be today, okay, I argued that we humans have a problem. And that problem is that we have countless options for various tools that we can use. We can go to the App Store. There are millions of tools. There are hundreds of thousands of SaaS platforms that are out there for us to choose from. And they're amazing. And they just keep getting better and better. And wow. And if I was like some superhuman and I could just like learn to use all of these tools and be proficient at it, then wow, how productive might I be? And that's why a bunch of you may have spent a bunch of your time recently watching YouTube tutorials, learning how to use various tools, yeah? Okay, well, if that's you, I want to show you something. No matter how much time you spend watching YouTube tutorials, learning to use the tools, you will never be able to leverage even one 100,000th of these things, right? You're the bottleneck. I'm the bottleneck too. Humans are the bottleneck. And therefore, in a world of expanding options and expanding capabilities, it doesn't matter how good AI gets, we will continue to be the bottleneck. And I proposed again 3 years ago that what we needed was some kind of a personal digital agent. I called it UAI, which is some kind of a thing, an AI, that knows how to use all of these and can continue to learn to use new tools and leverage them. And our job is to maintain a personal relationship with this thing. And that's the only thing that could possibly scale. And we are certainly in this world now. And by the way, the first sort of canonical thing that I can say meets this is something like OpenClaw or Claude Cowork or Hermes Claude. There's like thousands of these claws now, these personal agents. That's what these things are. They are our personal proxy. Our job is to configure them and maintain a relationship with them. Their job is to be able to do this work. We should not be doing any work with software. What does that mean then? Well, it means that all those SaaS companies that built these like giant businesses selling us tools for humans to use, what happens to them if we humans don't need tools anymore? Our agents don't need tools like those. Our agents don't need the kinds of interfaces that various SaaS platforms provide for humans. They do much better with APIs. Okay, and so this is why SaaSpocalypse is real. Also, again, humans being able just to use coding agents to build things of their own. And you can do that. One last thing I want to show you. MindStudio, we've had a blog before, but running a blog is hard and takes time. I only have 10 people. I don't have any time to build a blog. So a couple of months ago, I suggested to one of our non-technical folks, hey, do me a favor and build us a blog. And so he built us a blog, Insights for AI Builders. It launched 2 months ago. And this blog is completely autonomous. This blog every day monitors about a dozen YouTube channels that report on AI automatically, just every day, just monitors them. Reads the transcripts of all their videos as a set of a dozen channels, ranks topics that they're talking about, then goes off and does deep research on all of these topics, and writes anywhere from 20 to 60 blog posts per day. May 5th, May 5th, May 5th, May 5th, see May 5th, May 5th. Lots of articles published on May 5th, okay? And these are amazing articles. They're well-researched. By the way, it also automatically generates ad units for Remy. This ad unit had no designers involved in it, ever. It was generated dynamically by an application that was built by a non-technical person that works here, Luis, okay? He studied film at Chapman University. He's not a developer. Okay, and so it does this, and that's pretty amazing. Okay, but that's cool, so what? So you're publishing a bunch of like AI stuff to the internet. Whoop-de-doo. Yeah, whoop-de-doo. This is Ahrefs. This is like the gold standard in SEO. And you can see here over the last 3 months, these are our GEO scores, Gemini ranking for answers when Gemini answers, up 64 to 74. Perplexity, 17 to 17. All of Perplexity came in the last 3 months. Gemini, 240 here. Copilot, Grok. And this is organic traffic. Okay. Before this, on average, we had 3,000 people, 2,800 people. This is per day, uniques, and then it went up. Yesterday, 173,000 people showed up because of this blog that was launched 2 months ago, built by a non-technical person using Remy, automated. You can do that too. And that's kind of my end here for you. So hopefully this was valuable. Feel free and check out MindStudio. Feel free and find me on LinkedIn and connect. I'd be happy to answer your questions. And yeah, I appreciate you guys having me here.
Thank you so much, Dimitri. That was wonderful. And thank you to all of our speakers, Wade, Richard, Amit, for sharing your insights on how we can move from AI experimentation to impact at scale. Thank you all for attending today's webinar. We really appreciate you spending your time with us and asking such thoughtful questions and engaging throughout the workshop in the chat. If you missed any moments from the event, we will share a recap, including additional resources to help you continue on your AI journey. Thank you all again, and have a great rest of your day.